14th triple-double of the season, 28 points, 13 rebounds, 11 assists. Look how impressive is LeBron's performance, and wait for it, year 15.
Well, listen, the Cavs obviously have struggled throughout the year. They've dealt with injuries. They've dealt with lack of attention. They dealt with the attrition of the 3 straight finals, 7 straight for LeBron. Somehow, he hasn't. He had one mediocre month, and in that mediocre month, he still was 50% from the floor, 23, 7, and 7. And he said it. He said he ages like a fine wine. This will be the 14th consecutive season he's top 5 in the MVP vote. It's totally unreal, and I don't know how he does it, because we've never seen an NBA player do it like this for this long of a period of time, this consistently without injury.
The one thing that's as important as ability playing pro sports is availability. How often are you going to be available? And we haven't seen a player that's been able to play to this level with the type of consistency. So I would say I'm not surprised by year 15 because I saw year 13 and 14. So LeBron James, he is the one guy. Like, he is the true unicorn. We give all these other people nicknames before they do anything, but LeBron is showing in year 15 that he's something special. That's a credit to not only his dedication to taking care of his body, but, man, God gave him a great package to work with.
Core strength, Nick. Core strength. Sticking with the Cavs, Kyle Korver started in place of J.R. Smith last night. Now, J.R. Smith hasn't exactly had a season to remember. I won't get into details now. When asked what this means going forward, Smith said, honestly, I don't know. CC, what should J.R. Smith's role be on this team now going forward?
They should have been put J.R. on the bench. J.R. went to the coach earlier in the season, and Ty Lue tried to, like, no, not right now. They had a lot of things going on the team. No, we need you in the starting lineup. But, no, they need to put him on the bench. Now, I don't know if Kyle Korver, if he can be the starter, but J.R., like, he definitely should be coming off the bench. I'm concerned about J.R. Have been concerned for a long time. And the incident where he had one of the coaches, where he threw something on one of the coaches, I believe that that will have an effect on the team the rest of the season. That's not something that one of your marquee guys does and you just get away with it.
Can't happen. And one of the only 4 guys left on the team that's been on the finals team every year since LeBron came back. You mentioned you don't know if Korver's going to be the long-term solution. They said Korver is there just for until Rodney Hood's back healthy. Rodney Hood will be taking that starting spot. Now, Korver played really well yesterday, so maybe that would change slightly, but they want to start Rodney Hood. I said 2 weeks ago, we know what their best lineup will be. Hill, Hood, LeBron, Love, Nance. It's just they've had injuries. Now, on JR, he's been the least productive starting shooting guard that's not a rookie over the last 2 years in this league. Last year, there was injury and there was near personal tragedy, so we got a pass for that. There is no pass this year. JR, and if you saw him in yesterday's game, when he did come in the game, he threw a totally unnecessary behind-the-back pass, and he did a 360 in the air on a pass. It seemed like he was playing with a bit of a bleep you attitude, given his demotion. That can't happen. Not with 15 games left in the season, not when supposedly he's one of the veteran leaders on the team. That cannot happen.
If JR is one of your leaders, good Lord.
Well, he's one of the only guys that's been there.
Well, that don't make you a leader just because you've been sitting on the side of the curb. That just make you a guy sitting on the side of the curb. Waiting for your ride.
That's what CC always says. Hold these. To the NFL now. The Dolphins agreed to a 2-year deal with wide receiver Danny Amendola. Amendola spent the last 5 seasons with the Patriots, winning 2 Super Bowls. CC, you surprised Amendola left New England?
Yeah, I mean, they've been asking to take a pay cut the last 3 years. Hey, you know something? I got work for you, but I'm going to pay you less money. Oh, we want you to come back. Hey, I got work for you. I love you. I want you to take less money. And he could get cut by New England. Man, hey, if Edelman comes back healthy, like, it's on the block for him every year getting cut. He's not going to ever make the kind of money that Miami paid him. Man, he's got to be able to go. He knows the division. He's got to be able to go to Miami and take that money. At some point, you got to get selfish. And I can understand giving the pay cuts and the sacrifice he's made for New England. Man, go to Miami and enjoy yourself, bro. Get some of that sunshine.
I do wonder, though, if the Pats will miss him. There was a very interesting moment in the final episode of Tom versus Time. And by the way, we have the director of that, Gotham Chopra, on the show later, where Tom's on the phone with Gronk after the Jags game, after the AFC Championship game, talking to Gronk about, hey, it was a miracle we won without you, can't believe it. And Gronk says, what happens to Danny in the playoffs, man? And Brady's like, I don't know. So I looked it up. It's unbelievable.
Insinuating how good he is.
How good he is. In 69 career regular season games with the Patriots, he has 12 touchdowns. That's one every 7 games. In 12 career playoff games, he's got 6 touchdowns. That's one every other game. Like, he has been a reliable weapon for Tom Brady in the postseason. He obviously now will be going to Miami, where he will not be playing with anyone in the postseason. But glad he got his money.
But he will have a tan.
Yes, absolutely.
Which he could not have in New England. Finally, and that's always important when you play football, despite a brief flirtation with the Vikings, Drew Brees agreed to a 2-year deal with the Saints yesterday. We all sort of assumed this would happen. The deal will give Brees $50 million, $27 million guaranteed. CC, are you surprised that Brees took such a short deal?
No, he's 39 years old. He's at the end of his career. They also have some things as far as ownership, you know, there with the family. Like, how long will they own the football team? I think Drew Brees, at this point, he's playing year to year. This is a 1-year deal for $27 million. The team has the option on the 2nd year. I'm sure if Drew continues to play at this level, he stays healthy, I'm sure they exercise the option for year number 2. But I like the fact that he stayed there in New Orleans. Sometime during the season, I know he's got less than 2,000 yards. He's going to pass Peyton Manning as the all-time passer in the National Football League. Yes, I did send out a tweet with Drew Brees because the Vikings called, but in all honesty, we need to see Drew Brees, when he breaks that record, he needs to have a Saints uniform on. He's the greatest Saints player in the history of that franchise. The lone Super Bowl they have is because of Drew Brees. He changed the culture there. They took a chance on a small, undersized guy who was not a prolific passer in San Diego when he came there. They took a chance on him, and, man, they built magic together. I'm glad to see him going back to New Orleans, because also they're one of the teams that you're going to have to deal with in the NFC.
Yes.
They took a chance on him also, CC, coming off a major injury. An injury that made Miami
Well, that was the only chance.
Well,
I mean,
correct. But he was not, when he went, even absent the injury, he, like you mentioned, he was not Drew Brees, the way we think of him now, leaving San Diego. He was a good quarterback available. The same offseason, Dante Culpepper was available. It looked like he was going to go to Miami. Miami's doctors don't clear him. They go with Dante. Nick Saban goes with Dante. And, the rest is a sliding doors moment in NFL history. As far as Brees, he is supposed to be a Saint. And the Saints knew that he felt he was supposed to be a Saint. And I think he probably could have squeezed a few more dollars out of this. But what Brees knows is this. While he's not going to play for free, and $27 million is a lot of money, he also knows the only reason Drew Brees is not, because you mentioned it, he's going to throw for more yards than any player in the history of the league. The only reason when we talk about the Mount Rushmore of quarterbacks, the truly top 5 guys of all time, that Brees is in that next tier down, is because he only has the 1 championship. Like, Drew Brees knows this team is good enough to compete for a title. He knows that if he were to squeeze every last dollar out of this, it might hurt their ability to compete for a title. And if all of a sudden Drew Brees becomes 2-time Super Bowl champion Drew Brees, you start looking at him versus John Elway. You start looking at him versus Steve Young. You start looking at him versus some other guys differently than you probably do right now.
And plus, unlike other teams right now in the NFC, which they need a lot of help and a lot of holes to plug, the Saints did really well last year. So bringing Brees back, they can kind of pick up where they left off.
No, they had no choice. They had no plan B or plan C. It was to sign Drew Brees.
Right.
The contract language was a little bit difficult, but they got it done.
All right, Packers made news yesterday saying goodbye to Jordy Nelson, who had been there since 2008, and hello to Jimmy Graham, who had spent the last 3 seasons catching passes from Russell Wilson out in Seattle. Jimmy for Jordy. Nick, are the Packers surrounding Aaron Rodgers with enough talent?
Listen, I think they got marginally better with this move. If you can, I know it's not a trade, but if you just consider it, they basically took money that could have been allocated to Jordy Nelson, gave it to Jimmy Graham. I think Jimmy Graham right now at this stage of his career is slightly better than Jordy Nelson. I don't think Jordy Nelson has been the same player, the perennial Pro Bowler that we saw pre-ACL, post-ACL. You've seen his yards per catch go from 15 and above for 4 straight seasons, to 13, and then last year less than 10. Part of that, of course, is Aaron Rodgers wasn't out there, but he's not as explosive as he once was. But Jimmy Graham also hasn't been the dominant force he was in New Orleans in a few years now. He's still a very good red zone threat. He's still a guy that can go up and get the jump balls. But when you saw him dominating in New Orleans, CeCe, he averaged 138 targets per year. They were feeding him the football. They stopped feeding him to that level in Seattle, and you saw the production drop dramatically to where he only had one season in Seattle of more than 600 yards receiving. So I think they got marginally better. I don't think they got much better, and I'm very curious how Aaron Rodgers feels.
Like I tell you all the time, there are a lot of players that are system players. The way Jimmy Graham was able to do that was because of Sean Payton. Now, Sean Payton's productivity has not gone down as a play caller. He's one of the best that I've ever seen, and Jimmy Graham was a product of that. But as a player, Jimmy Graham thought it was him, not the system. So then he went to Seattle in their passing system, not as sophisticated. It is not a mismatch-based offense. Sean Payton is looking for the mismatch in the defense. What is the soft spot? What guy can I have dominate? And we see Green Bay do this with Mike McCarthy. I believe that he will utilize Jimmy Graham. We'll see Jimmy Graham be more utilized in the passing game, in the field, compared to just being a red zone wide receiver. And the Jordy Nelson puzzle, I'm not puzzled by it, because last year when they signed Davante Adams, the last week of the season, they signed him to an extension. Randall Cobb or Jordy Nelson, one of them got to go. Now, Jordy Nelson is the older of the two and had a higher cap number, so he was the one who got it. Now, I thought that they would go to Jordy the way Green Bay has done in the past and ask him, do you want to take a reduction in salary? And Jordy could have stayed there, and then they still would have had a problem adding Jimmy Graham. But I'm not surprised, because they made it a priority to give Davante Adams that new contract. So they named him the #1 wide receiver when they gave him #1 money.
You brought up, I wonder how Aaron Rodgers feels, which is interesting because Aaron Rodgers has tweeted in the last 24 hours his support for Jordy Nelson. He has tweeted and expressed a little remorse over social media that he was leaving. Remember last year, they ended up getting rid of his quarterbacks coach basically without telling him, and then this happens. You wonder how much dialogue they are actually having with their star on their team about some of the moves they're making.
I know it's not done this way in the NFL, but if there's any player in the league that deserves a NBA-esque LeBron level of deference from his front office, from we're going to run some things by you, it's Aaron Rodgers. Teams don't do this in the NFL. I get it. But Aaron Rodgers, you saw them last year. Super Bowl contender. One of the best teams in the league. He gets hurt. Their season falls apart. And you saw in what Aaron was tweeting, also the tweets he was liking, as far as, yeah, this was his guy. We saw him, I think we have a video, we saw him in the press conference after the NFC Championship game against Atlanta, talking about Jordy playing with broken ribs in that game. If you remember how emotional he was talking about Jordy Nelson.
Yeah, I mean, I'm so proud of Jordy. I mean, it's incredible that he was out there. Yeah.
I mean, that's his guy. And so it's a cold business. But given the Alex Van Pelt situation, as CeCe grabs a handkerchief, I wonder how this lands with him. Is that not of concern to you, Chris?
Man, they got zero concern, man. All right, you're here to play football, not to pick the players. And what player have we seen that we can give the credibility to think that they know as much as the football people? When you give players the power to pick, you get into players picking from their emotion. And players don't know what's best from a salary cap scheme. Their focus is very, very narrow. So, no, Aaron Rodgers, throw the ball. You're not going to pick the players. What we'll let you do is there's a possibility we're going to cut Jordy Nelson. All right? We need the salary cap space. That's how I would run it past him. It wouldn't be. I don't care what your opinion is.
But didn't Tom Brady have an opinion onto whether Jimmy Garoppolo should stay or not?
No, they didn't have no opinion. They didn't have no opinion. New England didn't care what he thought. There was rumor that he had an opinion, adverse opinion, privately. But it wasn't like the club went to him and said, hey, what do you think about Jimmy Garoppolo? No.
No, he went to the club.
We can't confirm that.
You're right. We can't.
We can't confirm that.
But you said going to him at the very least and giving him the courtesy heads up. That's something they didn't do with the quarterbacks coach. This is a guy like he is. I think we would agree one of, if not the singular most important player to his franchise in the league. Well,
you think he knows what's best for them cap-wise?
No, I'm not saying that you have to ask his permission, but I am saying...
I just disagree.
No, of course.
All right,
but
I got him here to play football. I don't have him here to pick the players. All right?
Do you think what you said they should have done? Like, my question is, did they do that? And if not, like, because they didn't do that with the quarterback's coach.
This is the thing. You walk a thin line in allowing people to participate in the decision-making. And when you get into that with players, you get into the emotion of it. And when you get into your emotions, are you going to pick the best player that's going forward at the right salary? All right? Now, when they had Brett Favre, they didn't go over personnel with Brett Favre. Now, I don't know why they should be going over personnel with Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, or anyone else in the league. I believe that they have people that are more equipped to do that than the players, including Aaron Rodgers.
All right, coming up, let's talk some basketball. Is Russ Westbrook doing enough to make his team better?
Action Jack's back?
No, my man Jack, if you want to select some players, I'll grant you a little grace and everything. But see, you know people. You taught me something yesterday.